Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much, Roli, for the very warm introduction. Today we arrive at Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av, a day centered on love. Whereas Tisha B'Av speaks from the depths of despair and destruction, Tu B'Av offers a sweetness, a tikkun, a repair from that brokenness we so much feel, an uplift. Mishnah teaches, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel said, there are no days as joyous for the Jewish people as Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur, as on them the daughters of Jerusalem would go out in their white clothes and dance in vineyards. And yet, as we try to imagine a redeemed future of young people dancing joyfully without restraint, it feels jarring, dare I say inappropriate. The world does not feel like a vineyard. It feels constricted, a narrow place. I imagine I'm not alone. Part of me is still stuck on October 7th. It's hard to feel joy when the trauma is still ongoing, when pain persists, violence is unabated, and hostages remain in captivity, some 670, 80 days. A week ago, many of us sat on this floor in darkness, reciting Eicha, Jeremiah's words, alive not only in the ancient prophecy, but in our headlines, on our screens, and in our streets. And most heartbreakingly, in the devastation, destruction, in loss, in the land that so many call holy. And I'm also holding the memory of Auda al-Hathlin, a Palestinian human rights activist, teacher, husband, and father of three, committed to a life of nonviolence. He was murdered a few weeks ago by a very well-known Jewish extreme settler in the village of Al-Khair in the town of Masafra Yatta, a resilient community of farmers in the South Hebron Hills. It's a place that I and many other clergy, Israeli civilians, civil society, humanitarians, politicians, and the global Jewish community have visited and volunteered in. On Thursday, his body was finally released to his family after 10 days of pressure, a hunger strike by the women of the community, and demonstrations. The army designated the village as a closed military zone in order to prevent people from coming, turning away many supporters and friends. Aldo was someone that you met once and never forgot. He was finally laid to rest in the place that he lived and fought so hard for, the place where he died. May Aldo's memory continue to be a blessing. May he rest in peace, and may his family find comfort in his courage and in his legacy. It's hard to move forward. I feel that tension deeply. And I felt the same paralysis, often, usually between Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut, especially when I lived in Yerushalayim. One moment standing in silence on Har Herzl, surrounded by the names etched in stone. Next, fireworks, flags, and celebration. My body might have been in Gan Sacher, but my heart hadn't made the journey. I always wanted to linger a bit longer. Sometimes the transition feels too sharp. The calendar may say to us, celebrate now, but our hearts say no, not yet. Even now, it's hard to feel that comfort when the images we see of suffering of both Israeli and Palestinians haunt us. As released hostage Gadi Moses urged us earlier this week, we must stop everything, refuse to normalize this life, refuse to lose values, refuse war, stop everything. And in these days, it seems that we need an awful lot of comfort. Much of our Torah and liturgy emerges from that same tension, the gap between what we long for and what we actually experience. As we look toward the promise of a new year, our tradition offers clues on how we can bridge this gap. One such voice is Rabbi columnist Kalman Shapira, the Rabbi of the Warsaw Ghetto. I know that his Torah has been shared from this bima many times. Before the Shoah, he was a visionary educator, writing with deep compassion about pedagogy and spiritual growth. Despite growing up in a very yeshivish world with no outside education, a lot of his educational philosophy seems like it'd be coming from very progressive education right here and right now. During the interwar period, he led one of the largest yeshivot, Das Moshe, in interwar Europe. And during the war, when he was sent to the ghetto, where he saw his family members murdered in front of his eyes, he continued. He continued to teach and write Torah under impossible circumstances until the very end. Before he was sent to a work camp and killed, he buried his writings in milk casks beneath the ghetto, where they lay hidden and lost to the world. It was only decades later, during construction, when his writings were found and then sent to his brother who had survived the Shoah in Tel Aviv. And this would become, in the 60s, the Eish HaKodesh, the holy fire. It feels fitting to turn to his reflection on this week's Parsha and special Shabbat, written on August 8th, 1941. For Parashat Vaethanan, the first of 7 Haftarot of consolation. This Shabbat, as we explored earlier, is Shabbat Nachamu, the Shabbat of comfort, named for the first words of today's Haftorah, Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami, comfort, comfort, my people, says your God. The Eish HaKodesh asks, why this repetition? Why Nachamu, Nachamu, comfort, comfort? He links it to a verse in Jeremiah. A sin did Jerusalem sin. She sinned doubly. Israel was punished doubly, and therefore will be doubly consoled. The Eish HaKodesh then asks, what is double sin? He answers, when we act unjustly, we wound ourselves and the divine. And yet God remains close, even in those failures, even in those moments of falling short. Thus, teaches the Rebbe, every sin is actually a double sin. And when the person is punished, it is not only for their own sin, in order to repair their own soul, but also for that part of themselves, of God, so to speak, which also sinned. When we sin, we hurt God. Even when we do the opposite of God's will, God accompanies us. But how could this be? Why would God do the opposite of God's own will? The Eish HaKodesh pushes us even further, quoting a midrash from Ta'anit. The Jewish people begged of God, place me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm. God replied, daughter, you asked of me that which is only sometimes seen and sometimes concealed. But I will make you something that can be seen forever. As it is written in Jeremiah 49:16, for behold, I have engraved you upon the palms of my hands. Rashi explains, like the palm of the hand, the Jewish people are always in God's sight. We learn that God wants to be proximate, close, within our consciousness and in our actions. The Eish HaKodesh teaches that this is God's promise to Bnei Yisrael. Just as we wrap the tefillin, placing God's name on our arm and our forehead, Bnei Yisrael, we, become God's tefillin, a seal upon God's heart and arm. It's a physical embodiment of the Shema's love. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart and all of your might. Love dwells not only within each of us, but also between and among us. Therefore, the doubling of Nachamu reminds us that failure is a key part of actually what it means to be human. But it means to be human, failing in being held within divine love. God doesn't abandon us in our brokenness, but draws closer, even when we might not be able to feel it. The challenge of moving from Tisha B'Av to Tu B'Av is the challenge of learning to move from paralysis, loss, and fear towards love and hope. In our journey through the Jewish calendar, these feelings often intermingle. But the call to comfort reminds us that we are not alone. We face a choice as we journey toward Elul in the new year of 5786, deciding not just what we want to stand against, but what we stand for, not only in how we fight, but also in how we build, the ahava, with love, through love, with courage and compassion, honesty and truth. I think of Alda and how he lived. He cared deeply about justice, not only for his own family in Masafriyata and his community, but for people everywhere. We honor those we have lost in how we live. Vaethanan brings us back to the Shema, not only as a call to be heard, but as a command to listen to God, to each other, and those whom we might not yet understand. As theologian Paul Tillich writes, the first duty of love is to listen. Listening is how we show up in love. From this place, b'hava, deep care and deep love for Israel, we are called to listen not only on our own ideas, our own fears, but also to those with whom we might not agree. It's the much harder task to open our minds and, more importantly, our hearts to the experiences, beliefs, and connection of those who also call it home, be it Israelis, Palestinians, Auda, and all those who carry on his legacy. If Tisha B'Av acknowledges the brokenness, then Tu B'Av offers a path toward healing, toward sweetness, care, and community. It invites us to listen from a place of wonder, curiosity, and empathy. Love in our tradition is not only an emotion, a feeling, it's an action, a posture, a way of life, a way of orienting ourselves, a way of being, and the avenue through which we pass along what is most precious and dear. It endures over time, manifesting in how we live, and it reflects the divine love we are commanded to emulate. The Shema is our daily call, twice a day, to listen to the world around us, to what our ears, our eyes, and our hearts encounter. It's a mantra that binds us not only to God, but also to one another through love. God's love, although it is hard to understand at times, is unconditional. We may be punished, abused, neglected, hurt. We may have fallen short, feel guilty, ashamed, or be in the wrong, but we will never stop being held. And we too are called to love actively. Teach them to your children, speak of them when you sit in your homes, when you travel on the road, and when you lie down, and when you arise. Love cannot be an isolated experience. Rather, it is a dualistic, interactive, and communal endeavor. Our holiest moments are the ones in which we're most present to one another, a reflection of the divine love that we are called to emulate. We were not created, put on this earth, to see each other as adversaries. We are called to turn toward, not away, to listen, uplift, and reflect that divine image in each person, to better understand that we are all worthy, that we are all holy, and we are all precious. The rabbis of the Musar movement teach that there is no greater religious act than showing compassion that mirrors God's own compassion. And while we cannot fully embody the fullness of God's love, we can grow in love each day. May our hearts remain open and our lives a reflection of the love we are commanded and gifted to live by. Shabbat Shalom.